Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into, I think, one of the toughest problems in the C-suite. It's this huge gap that just persists between having a great strategy on paper and actually executing it to deliver real value.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We've got a stack of research here on a platform called CovQ that's pronounced CovQ, the compound value creator quotient.
That's right. And our mission today is, well, it's very specific. We're doing a deep dive into the financial side, the strategic effectiveness of this CovQ platform. We really need to figure out if the findings stack up. Does it warrant an immediate pilot program here? From my perspective as Chief Strategy Officer, I need to know this isn't just another reporting tool adding noise.
Right, and their dashboard.
Exactly. It needs to be a proper business building infrastructure, something cohesive. It has to help us reliably hit our critical priorities and, crucially, kickstart that kind of exponential growth, that compounded outcome we're always aiming for.
And from where I sit in the CFO chair, I look at this as maybe the last big area that hasn't been fully digitalized. I mean, think about our tech stack now.
Yeah.
We invested millions, literally millions, digitalizing our transactional systems, ERPs, planning tools, reporting infrastructure. They're all there.
They are.
And those systems, they're great at telling us what happened. Processing transactions, fantastic.
Yeah.
But the actual process of creating value, translating strategic ideas into measurable enterprise value that still feels, well, stubbornly analog.
And then that analog nature, relying on static plans, siloed reviews, PowerPoints that are old the second you save them. That's precisely the friction, the drag that CovQ seems designed to eliminate.
Makes sense.
HBR Analytic Services actually put a fine point on this. They recognized CovQ is basically pioneering a whole new category, the value creation management platform.
That's a pretty bold claim, a whole new category.
It is, but it reflects something real. It's acknowledging that while we've got sophisticated software for, HR, supply chain, finance, all the big functions,
Check.
we've somehow let the most critical function, the engine of future value, just exist as these disconnected manual steps. And the result, year after year, it's just this profound execution drag. Things slow down.
So our goal for this review then is pretty clear. We need to understand how CovQ actually moves us beyond that analog stage.
Yep.
We need to see how it works as a systematic, data-driven tool for strategy. Does it ensure our priorities aren't just words in a vision statement, but are actually tracked, delivered, and consistently compounding value for our shareholders?
Okay, let's unpack this then. I think we have to start with the diagnosis first. You can't really appreciate the potential solution until you grasp just how deep this strategic failure runs across industries.
Agreed. Laying out the problem clearly is key.
So the consensus on why strategy unravels, I think, really sets the stage for why something like CovQ might be needed. The basic challenge, which you touched on, is this fundamental mismatch between the big, long-term strategic dream, the 3 to 5 year vision, and the day-to-day, short-term reality of managing budgets, resources, hitting quarterly numbers.
Oh, we feel that tension constantly, especially around budget time. It's painful. You're pushing for investments in high growth, maybe slightly risky areas that might pay off big in, say, 36 months. But those investments, they almost always get squeezed or just cannibalized by short-term pressure, shareholder demands, operational budgets that are kind of locked into how we spent money last year. It feels like we're using a rearview mirror to drive forward.
That systemic friction, that's exactly what Professor Rita McGrath at Columbia Business School talks about. She articulated the core purpose of good strategy in a way that really hit home for me, thinking about what we try to do.
Okay.
She said, and I'm quoting here, "When it's done right, your strategy is really pulling you into the future. It's a set of consciously made choices about what are we going to do, what are we not going to do, how is that going to create a future that meets our growth ambitions."
That's the dream, isn't it? Proactive, conscious choices pulling us towards a future we actually want.
Exactly. But here's the kicker, the massive failure point she identifies. The traditional management processes we all rely on, things like, annual budgeting cycles, resource allocation fights, old school governance structure.
Usual suspects.
They are fundamentally misaligned with that forward-looking, value-focused approach. McGrath points out that this mismatch creates incentives that often work against the strategic goals we set. So the strategy just comes unglued, as she puts it, the moment it hits the operational reality on the floor.
Because the execution machinery, our day-to-day processes, They're designed to optimize today, not build tomorrow.
Precisely. Which leads right into the point made by Professor Simon Grand from the University of St. Gallen. His observation really hammers home this systemic indifference towards value creation as a discipline.
Okay, what did he find?
Professor Grand was very direct about it. He stated, "I doubt that many companies take value creation seriously, so they see no need to actually address value creation in a systematic way."
Wow, okay. That's blunt.
It is. He argues that companies might talk about prioritizing value creation, but they don't actually build the processes, the systems, to measure and manage it effectively.
And the measurement problem, as you said earlier, that's the really hard part, isn't it? How do you measure the soft stuff?
Exactly. Grand points out that organizations lack good data around value creation specifically because those critical soft aspects, things like customer experience or our internal culture around innovation, the speed of our decision-making, our tolerance for strategic risk.
All crucial but fuzzy.
Right. They're traditionally very difficult to quantify using standard financial metrics alone. You can't easily put a dollar value on decision velocity in the quarterly report.
Which is where this idea of augmented metrics comes in, I suppose. We need something more. Metrics that capture these leading indicators of value, bridging the gap between, say, an engineer's daily work and the CEO's strategic goal.
Precisely. Augmented metrics are the system's attempt to quantify the qualitative, essentially. So, for example, a traditional metric might be R&D spend that's a lagging input, right?
Right, how much we spend.
An augmented metric, which the CovQ assessment seems designed to capture, might be something like strategic resource velocity. It tries to measure how quickly and efficiently cross-functional teams can shift time and budget away from low-value stuff towards high-value innovation.
Okay, I see. Like agility quantified.
Or measuring decision velocity, tracking the cycle time from spotting a strategic opportunity to actually giving it the green light and resources. These factors predict future value, and CovQ claims to track them systematically.
So the big picture takeaway here, before we get into CovQ mechanics, seems pretty stark. Strategy design and strategy delivery, they should be two sides of the same coin, completely intertwined.
They should be.
But right now, they're separated by these clunky execution systems that pretty much guarantee our strategic ideas decay into fragmented, low-impact activities by the time they hit the front line. We desperately need a system that fuses them back together.
And that fusion point, that's the perfect lead-in to Section 2, how CovQ's engine is supposed to work. It leverages this intersection of AI, artificial intelligence, and human intelligence.
Yeah.
CovQ is definitely positioning itself as more than just software. They call it a complete value creation OS. So not just a tool, but a framework, a method, a knowledge base, all embedded in a SaaS platform.
Right, the OS concept. Let's start with the assessment piece, because that seems to be where the data comes from. You mentioned it's the core.
It is, the CovQ assessment. They bill it as a kind of corporate IQ system. It's designed to capture both hard and soft factors, internal perspectives, even external inputs across 60 core value drivers. 60. Okay, hold on. 60 drivers sounds incredibly detailed, maybe too detailed. My immediate CFO red flag is data fatigue. Bureaucracy. Are we asking our managers to spend weeks filling out forms? Because that's a non-starter.
That's a fair concern and honestly a critical one. The platform's design seems to anticipate that directly. Firstly, the assessment process is apparently engineered for, get this, zero prep.
Zero prep, really.
And it works fully remotely. It's not positioned as a passive survey you fill out alone. It's framed as a dynamic, guided team exercise. And that dynamic part seems key. It's supposed to force immediate reflection and discussion, collaboration, not assigning homework.
Okay, so it's designed to be maybe a constructive kind of friction.
Yeah.
It generates the data while potentially fostering alignment.
That seems to be the idea. And to manage the complexity of those 60 drivers, they aren't all treated flatly. They're grouped under 5 major strategic segments: deep, impact, creates, value, building, which we can talk more about.
The required output isn't just raw data. It's a high-resolution diagnosis of where you stand strategically and capability-wise. This results in a quantifiable CovQ score from 10 to 100. But perhaps more importantly, right at the start, it generates this executive alignment delta report.
Alignment delta. What's that show?
It shows exactly where the leadership team agrees and, critically, where you fundamentally see things differently on priorities, on capabilities, on risks.
Okay, that alignment delta sounds like gold. Immediate, actionable intelligence that could potentially bypass months of painful internal debates and circular arguments.
That's the promise.
Yeah.
Now let's get into this AI-HI synergy, because this is where the system is supposed to go beyond just collecting data and show some real intelligence.
Well, that's the smart part.
This synergy seems to be their core intellectual property. So human intelligence, that's us, our teams, our collective HI, provides the essential qualitative context. We bring the nuanced understanding of our company's history, its culture, our specific mission, the vision we're chasing. We provide the context that raw numbers alone just can't capture.
Makes sense. And the AI part, the artificial intelligence.
The AI steps in as the sophisticated pattern recognizer. It enhances the interpretation by sifting through all the data from those 60 drivers, looking for correlations, dependencies, hidden patterns across the entire business that, frankly, no human team, especially working in functional silos, could realistically spot.
Okay, so it connects dots we might miss.
Exactly. The AI then uses this analyzed data, and importantly, it benchmarks it against that large data set they have, those 10,000 plus data points from other companies.
Right, the context.
To help prioritize initiatives. It can generate a ranked list of opportunities for improvement or growth. It can even apparently draft potential strategic actions. So it gives our teams a highly informed starting point to then discuss, refine, and own.
I get the pattern detection part. But, generic AI tools are kind of infamous for spitting out recommendations that sound plausible but are ultimately useless, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rabbit hole problem. How does CovQ make sure the AI's suggestions actually align with our specific strategy and don't just send us chasing shiny objects?
That's the crucial link, you're right. And it's why the underlying framework, the Value Creation OS, is so important. Without that structure, AI output is just general advice.
Okay.
CovQ provides the structured, value-driven context, those 60 drivers, the 5 segments that the AI needs to be focused and precise. The AI's algorithms, its neural network-inspired methods, are essentially constrained by the Value Creation OS. It ensures the recommendations always tie back to measurable drivers of our enterprise value. It's like giving the AI a custom blueprint for our specific mission, not just a generic map.
Got it. So the AI finds the hidden connections, but our HI, guided by the framework, ensures it's relevant. Okay, so once all this input is gathered and the AI does its thing, the platform structures the output into something called PIOs. What's that about?
Yes, PIOs. The CovQ platform systematically takes all that raw data and analysis and allocates the findings into 4 clear, actionable categories. It's an acronym. Power, your strength, things to leverage, risk, threats you need to mitigate, issues, immediate problems or weaknesses to fix, and opportunities, potential growth areas to pursue.
Can you give me a quick, concrete example of how a PIO might look in practice?
Sure. Let's say the assessment results show your company scores really high in product market fit. That's a clear power. But you score low on strategic resource velocity, that agility metric we talked about. That's an issue.
Okay.
The AI might then flag a strategic opportunity, maybe launching a new adjacent product line, leveraging that strong fit. But it would immediately flag a linked risk that your current execution team lacks the operational speed, that resource velocity, to actually launch it effectively and hit the required TTV. The time to value.
I see. So it connects the dots and links the capability issue directly to the risk associated with the opportunity.
Exactly. This PIO classification is designed to create immediate strategic clarity. It forces faster, more informed prioritization and helps guide resource allocation to where it will have the biggest impact, considering both the upside and the potential roadblocks.
That systematic structuring sounds vital, especially when we move into Section 3. Looking at the actual data CovQ has gathered and how it quantifies this compounding gap. The core idea here, as the sources keep mentioning, it echoes that famous Einstein quote, right, about compound interest being the most powerful force.
Alleged quote, yeah, but the principle holds. The system argues that consistent, aligned execution doesn't just add value linearly, it creates exponential compounding value over time.
And the data they've collected apparently shows just how rare that consistency actually is. This CovQ Insights report, drawing from over 10,000 data points across different industries, it really seems to quantify the sheer size of this strategy execution gap.
It does. The numbers are quite sobering, actually.
The finding about how few companies achieve real excellence, that's what jumped out at me as CFO. We obviously want to be a compounding leader, but this data suggests it's a very, very exclusive club.
It really is. According to their analysis, only 26.4% of the companies they assessed actually reach what they define as compounding performance levels.
Less than a third.
And even within that, it's broken down further. There's a tiny elite group, just 4.5%, classified as compounding leaders, scoring 85 to 100 on their scale. And then another 21.9% are strategic compounders, scoring between 75 and 84.
Okay, so add those up. 26.4%, which means the vast majority, what's that, 73.6% are operating below compounding levels.
Wow. A huge majority. They fall into categories like stabilized performers, opportunity candidates, or even at-risk under-leveraged.
This isn't just about missing a target here or there. This implies potentially massive, sustained value being left on the table. What's the real cost, do they say, of being just a stabilized performer? Sounds okay, but maybe it isn't.
The implied cost is really inertia, and ultimately missed market valuation. A stabilized performer is typically stuck optimizing the current way of doing things. They might be profitable, sure, but their growth is probably linear, predictable. They suffer from what you could call the strategy tax, all the resources spent planning big moves that never quite deliver their full potential.
Right. Lots of planning, not enough compounding.
Exactly. They have this enormous untapped potential for exponential growth, better profits, higher valuation multiples. And the key point is it's potential that's largely within their own operational control to unlock. It's not purely market dependent.
Okay, so to figure out where things break down for that 73.6%, we need to understand the structure of those 60 drivers you mentioned. They're grouped into 5 segments. Let's break those down, especially given what they found about the execution bottleneck.
Absolutely. These 5 segments represent their view of the complete architecture of value creation. They are: 1, deep strategic maturity. This looks at leadership vision, market positioning, the structural intent of the strategy. Usually, leadership teams score relatively well here. They have a vision.
Okay, the what's and why.
2, impact strategic leverage. This assesses how effective your core products are, your brand strength, the fundamentals of your market penetration. Generally, product fundamentals tend to be reasonably sound too.
The core offering.
3, creates execution engine. Now, this is the critical one. It measures core operational capability, change management, resource allocation speed, project governance, discipline, cross-functional work. The how.
Where the rubber meets the road.
4, VisiWe progress performance. This tracks accountability, the clarity of ROI on initiatives, the financial rigor applied during execution.
Measuring the results.
Building, growth enablers. And finally, this focuses on things like organizational culture, talent development, your capacity for future innovation, the long-term foundation.
Okay, that makes sense as a structure. And the punchline. The key finding from analyzing those 10,000 plus data points across these segments.
The key finding is remarkably consistent across different industries. Creates, the execution engine, is almost always the structural bottleneck.
Really? Creates.
Yes. Leadership teams generally have the vision, deep scores are often strong, and they often have decent products. Impact is usually okay. But when it comes down to the complex, messy, cross-functional act of executing strategy, the delivery systems, the processes, the capabilities, they remain fragmented. And that fragmentation causes the strategic intent to just decay.
Can we get more specific on why Creates fails? Is it mostly a governance problem, or is it resources or something else?
It seems to be a combination, which is why having those detailed drivers within Creates is important. The data consistently points to a few weakest links within that segment. Usually they center around: 1, strategic resource allocation. Just not having a dynamic way to shift money and, crucially, people's time quickly towards the highest impact projects as things change.
Stuck in annual budget cycle.
2, cross-functional budget compliance. Siloed budgeting, where departments protect their own turf instead of aligning budgets fully with the overarching enterprise strategy.
Politics, basically.
And 3, change management capability. The organization's actual speed and ability to absorb and implement strategic changes without massive delays and resistance. How quickly can we adapt?
That's a really powerful diagnosis.
Right.
Because it tells us exactly where we should be focusing our improvement efforts. It's not just about throwing more money at things. It's about governing the spend and the resources much, much better.
Right.
Which brings us neatly to that internal metric you mentioned, the team alignment factor.
Yeah.
This sounds critical.
It's presented as absolutely fundamental. It's not just measuring if people get along. It reflects the actual degree of consensus among the leadership team on the specific strategy and the tactical priorities needed to get there.
So it's about shared understanding of the what and the how.
Exactly. If the CEO, CFO, and CSO all agree on the 5-year destination but fundamentally disagree on the 3 most important steps to take this quarter, you've got a major problem. Failure is baked in. The platform apparently uses quadrant analysis, plotting the overall CovQ score against this alignment factor to highlight these risks immediately.
Okay, let's visualize that quadrant. You could have a high CovQ score, meaning your strategy model's strong, capabilities are generally good, but if you have low alignment on how to execute it.
Then you get what they call execution drag.
Execution drag.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. It's like having a powerful engine, but the wheels are spinning in different directions. Institutional inefficiency.
Precisely. The strategy itself might be great, but the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, or worse, is actively undermining it unintentionally. Momentum just stalls.
Yeah.
You lose that vital time to value, the TTV.
And the flip side, you could have high alignment, everyone's rowing in the same direction, but a low CovQ score.
That's equally problematic. It means the team is tightly aligned, but they're aligned around executing a weaker strategic model. They're efficiently optimizing suboptimal activities.
Yeah.
That's a clear signal, though. It says the team is ready, they're capable of alignment, but the platform needs to be used collaboratively to actually upgrade the quality and the ambition of the strategy itself. Opportunity knocks.
And the external validation for focusing on this alignment piece, it seems pretty strong, too. That executive poll cited in the materials, what was it? 56% of leaders said the single biggest opportunity for unlocking more value was in fully aligning strategy and teams.
56%. Now add that to the 26% who cited the need for rigorous execution focus.
Okay, 56 plus 26, that's 82%. No, wait.
Actually, the source material suggests adding them implies some overlap, but highlights the combined importance. It frames it as 96% of the opportunity being internal, 56% alignment, 26% execution, and perhaps some overlap or other factors making up the difference to imply almost all of it is controllable. The point is, an incredible chunk, let's say conservatively over 80%, potentially up to 96% of the opportunity, is completely controllable internally.
Wow. So it's not primarily about market conditions or competitors.
Not primarily. It's about our own operational and strategic hygiene. It's about getting our house in order, better systems, better measurement, better internal alignment.
That makes a really compelling case that this CovQ factor metric, measuring both the strength of the strategy score and the team's cohesion alignment, is exactly the kind of diagnostic we need. It gets everyone pointing in the same direction, towards the same high-impact goals.
It connects the human element, the consensus piece, directly to the financial outcome of value creation, which naturally leads us to the money.
Exactly. All this analysis, all these frameworks and scores, they have to translate to the bottom line. Which brings us to Section 4, the financial breakthrough. As CFO, this is where the rubber really meets the road. The ultimate justification for investing time and money in a system like this has to be measurable, verifiable financial uplift.
Understandably.
My direct concern is, how does this platform actually close the loop between a strategic investment, say, launching that new product, and the impact on our market cap? It absolutely has to pay for itself and then some.
That seems to be the explicit purpose of the specialized CovQ ROI module. It's designed specifically to address that concern, to close that financial loop.
Okay, how does it work?
According to the documentation, it calculates the strategic ROI not just for the overall strategy, but for the individual initiatives that bubble up from the assessment and the PRIO process. And crucially, it claims to quantify the incremental enterprise value created by executing that initiative successfully.
Incremental enterprise value.
Okay.
Okay, how does it calculate that? That involves assumptions, right? Revenue multiples, earnings multiples.
It does. It factors in standard valuation metrics like revenue and earnings multiples.
But calculating future enterprise value uplift, that can be a bit speculative. It relies heavily on assumptions. How does this system avoid just becoming another hopeful spreadsheet model where you tweak the assumptions until the ROI looks positive?
That's where the claimed advantage of operating above the existing transactional systems comes in. It uses the CovQ score and the alignment delta data points that are supposed to be continuously monitored and benchmarked to dynamically stress test those assumptions.
Ah, okay. So it uses the platform's own metrics to ground the financial projections.
That's the idea. It recognizes that value creation isn't just a one-off event. It's this ongoing, compounding process. The system aims to ensure that all the strategic activities, from how we allocate resources to how quickly we complete projects, are constantly tethered back to that ultimate goal of enterprise value uplift. It provides a common data-driven language between the strategy office and the finance team.
So it essentially acts as this cohesive strategy management layer on top of our existing ERPs and financial systems.
Yeah.
Our ERPs give us the backward-looking accounting data, the what happened. CovQ is supposed to provide the forward-looking management data tied directly to future valuation targets.
Exactly. And tying it to future value brings us right back to that critical concept of speed, which CovQ heavily emphasizes as time to value, TTV.
Right, TTV.
The whole platform is seemingly designed to accelerate TTV by improving alignment, clarifying priorities, identifying bottlenecks early via the PRIOs and the AI analysis. The goal is to eliminate that execution drag we talked about.
Let's really spell out the compounding effect of accelerating TTV, because I think that's where the exponential financial story is supposed to be. If, say, our typical cycle time for a major value-creating initiative is 12 months,
Okay.
and we can use a system like CovQ to get the clarity, the alignment, the discipline needed to execute that same cycle in maybe 9 months, that's a 25% reduction in TTV. That's not just saving us 3 months of effort, is it?
No, it's far more impactful than that. By shrinking the TTV for high-value initiatives, you fundamentally increase the frequency and therefore the overall yield of your strategy execution over time.
Okay, frequency and yield.
So over a, let's say, 3-year period, instead of completing 3 of those major 12-month value creation cycles, you now complete 4 9-month cycles. That one extra cycle, when you multiply it by the resulting revenue gains, the margin improvements, that translates directly into significantly higher cumulative earnings and therefore higher market capitalization.
Right. The compounding isn't linear, it's exponential. And the market rewards that kind of reliable, faster delivery. It rewards velocity with better valuation multiples, whether you're looking at EBITDA multiples, RSI, whatever your preferred metric is.
Absolutely. Investors value predictability and demonstrated execution capability. By institutionalizing faster TTV, by proving we can reliably deliver compounding growth, we inherently become a more attractive, less risky investment.
And it seems we're not alone in seeing this potential financial connection. The materials quote Rakiv Azad, the CFO of Alkira. He's got history at MongoDB too, so he's a credible voice on finance in fast-growing tech.
Yes, and his quote really seemed to validate the specific financial contribution of CovQ.
He basically nailed the pain point we wrestle with all the time. He said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, for years, CFOs have wanted to connect strategic initiatives directly to ROI and enterprise value uplift. That's the dream, he continued. The real breakthrough is when execution can be managed and tracked all the way to measurable market cap impact. And then the punchline. CovQ is definitely the missing system in the tech stack that makes this possible.
That's a strong endorsement. It perfectly encapsulates that idea of bridging the gap between historical financial reporting and forward-looking strategic management aimed at value creation.
And, beyond the big prize of valuation uplift, there are also more immediate, tangible operational benefits that would certainly help my finance team sleep better at night.
Like what?
Well, the idea of having a single dynamic source of truth for strategy execution. That alone enforces immediate discipline. It could drastically reduce the time we spend chasing down updates, consolidating siloed reports, preparing for executive meetings that often feel like status updates rather than strategic discussions.
That single source of truth, it also has implications for external communication, doesn't it? And internal morale.
Absolutely. If we can provide transparent, data-informed reporting, not just on financials, but on strategic progress, it builds trust with investors, it builds credibility, and internally it builds momentum. Everyone understands why certain initiatives are getting priority, how their work connects to the bigger picture, and how it contributes to that compounding effect. It makes the strategy feel real.
Okay, so that pretty much synthesizes the strategic arguments and the financial evidence we've reviewed here. Let's try to bring this to a clear conclusion and figure out the immediate next step.
Sounds good.
So boiling it down, CovQ seems to provide the necessary structure, the architecture, for an organization like ours to execute its strategy faster, better, probably cheaper in the long run, and definitely more frequently.
Right. It's positioned as the structured path for that huge 73.6% of companies currently stuck below compounding levels to basically reorganize their efforts and unlock that massive potential value.
It takes that analog, often manual, definitely fragmented process of value creation and attempts to systematically digitalize it, moving execution from being more of an art form dependent on heroes to a repeatable, measurable science.
And the most powerful finding for me, that convenient truth, they call it, is that statistics suggesting 96% of the opportunity for creating additional value lies internally.
Within our own control.
Exactly. It's split between that 56% needing better alignment and the 26% needing more rigorous execution focus. It frames this not as an external market problem we can't influence, but as an internal operational and strategic problem that we absolutely can solve. We don't need the market to boom, we just need a better internal operating system.
The urgency to consider this is maybe heightened when you factor in the proprietary nature of it. The source material mentions that they've filed patents for the CovQ system and method for value creation management.
I saw that. What does that signal to you?
Well, a patent application isn't granted overnight, but filing it signals this isn't just, repackaged consulting buzzwords in a software wrapper. It suggests they believe they have a genuinely novel, systematic, and methodologically unique approach here. It underlines the seriousness of defining this new category of value creation management and protecting the intellectual rigor behind the system.
And that leads to, I think, the final provocative thought. For you listening, and certainly for us sitting here, given the clear data on the cost of strategic misalignment, the sheer size of that 73% gap,
and the existence of a systematic, apparently patented solution designed specifically to fix it.
What is the actual risk of delaying adoption? Are we risking falling exponentially behind competitors who might start this compounding race now, leveraging this kind of framework while we stick to our analog ways?
It's a significant risk to consider. I think the strategic logic and the financial data we've discussed overwhelmingly support taking immediate action. At the very least, we need a baseline. We need to understand our current state of alignment and execution capability with more precision.
Agreed. So I propose we move forward. Let's initiate a pilot. The logical first step seems to be scheduling that team-wide CovQ assessment across the 60 core value drivers.
Get our own score.
Get our corporate IQ score, yes. And maybe more importantly right now, get that executive alignment delta report. That feels like the exact data-driven launchpad we need to stop debating and start high-impact mission delivery.
I concur. That assessment seems like the fastest, lowest friction way to get the immediate strategic clarity we need to align resources effectively and hopefully start achieving those compounding returns sooner rather than later. We really do need to start the compounding race now.
Okay then, let's make it happen. Thanks, this was a really productive deep dive into the material.
My pleasure. Good discussion.